Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Lawrence Whittle, CEO of Parsable, the company empowering industrial workers at companies like L'Oreal and Georgia Pacific with modern digital tools to improve productivity, quality, and safety. Lawrence, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thank you. Good morning.
What changes are manufacturers making to prioritize safety as they get back to pre-COVID operation levels?
Yeah, so obviously, I think the number one objective for all these companies is worker safety. Throughout this period, you've got companies that are essential industries that continue to work, and then you've obviously got companies that are now going back. And worker safety is the prevalent thing that people are focusing upon. And importantly, to make sure that the actual workers not are only safe, but actually feel safe. And this is where these modern digital tools can come in, because they're creating an environment where you can actually screen people coming to work. You can understand and communicate digitally as you get issues. So this is really what's the number one focus for these companies.
How has COVID-19 affected manufacturing for different verticals in different industries?
Yeah, this is, I think, perhaps one of the most interesting factors. We have customers throughout the world, actually 130 countries and across four main sectors. And each of the sectors and actually each of the countries has been impacted in different ways. We first of all talk about geographies. Europe was the first spike after it emerged in Asia Pacific, and each country had a slightly different approach. And then obviously, as we start to look into these verticals, it's really, really interesting. If you take the CPG verticals, such as Coca-Cola, Heineken, Carlsberg, these companies actually have demand for their products and are deemed essential. But the way they're having to operate with less people, because obviously they do have some issues with staff, and also with changing in consumer demand from certain types of products to other products. Obviously, on-premise beer has gone. People don't go to bars anymore. So they've been under an acute amount of operational stress because they're having to operate in these conditions. And again, these modern digital tools with people that are at home and people in the factory enable people to collaborate and communicate. So the CPG space, I think, has been particularly interesting. If you sort of go to the other extreme, which is maybe auto and aero, let's take domestically here in North America, the auto industry effectively shut down in terms of their auto business, but you saw many of them actually opening up to produce medical devices. So if you think about that, it's a tremendous sort of positive feeling, but again, operational pressures. How do you take workers that have been manufacturing auto parts and then manufacture medical devices? The way you do that, again, is through modern digital tools to provide checklists, work procedures that are served in a digital environment to explain how to do work. So that's sort of two extremes. And then if you think about another sector, which is the oil and gas sector, they've had multiple issues, not just with COVID, but also with the oil price. So you've got that implication where they have to completely operate with lower people and lower demand. And again, these modern digital tools start to really help these industries.
Lawrence, how can the manufacturing industry become more resilient to not just future crises, but for any unexpected situation?
Yeah, and I think this is, I don't think there's any good news about COVID. I think we're all suffering, for many, many weeks. But perhaps one of the things that's going to come out of it is this focus around being more resilient, being more agile. And this was sort of emerging even before COVID. I think the industrial world had really been waking up to the fact that the way they've been operating for the last 50, 100 years has to change. There's demographic shifts going on in that employee base, huge amounts of people retiring. And then if you think of what COVID has also done, it's impacted their view on supply chain, lots of supply chain disruptions. So I think what you're going to see is not an emergence of how do I react to a crisis, but actually a new operating mode, which is just going to be a lot more agile, with modern digital tools enabling people to be more effective with lower headcounts, to have move products around, move different locations where I manufacture. So I do think this is going to be an acceleration of digital transformation that has started before COVID, but I think there's going to be an acceleration. And what I do certainly believe is that any company that is not arming their frontline workers with these types of solutions actually won't be able to survive long term, because the drive for productivity, efficiency, and safety and quality at scale is very, very clear. And hopefully there isn't another COVID, but there will be a changing environment for all of us. And I think this is what's going to happen. This norm of how we're operating is a norm that these companies are going to have to continue for many, many years.
All right, Lawrence, thanks so much for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.